In the summer of 1483, two young boys were seen playing in the gardens of the Tower of London. One was the 12-year-old King of England, the other his 9-year-old brother. By the time the summer ended, the sightings stopped. They were never seen again. To understand why two children could simply vanish from a royal fortress, we have to look at the sudden power vacuum of that spring. King Edward IV had died unexpectedly in April, leaving his 12-year-old son, Edward V, as the new monarch. This chart shows the line of succession at the time. With Edward IV dead at the top, the crown belonged to his sons. As long as these two boys were alive, their uncle, Richard, Duke of Gloucester, had no legal claim to the throne. Richard was appointed Lord Protector to rule on the boys' behalf, but his actions quickly shifted. He moved the princes into the Tower, declared them illegitimate, and in July 1483, he crowned himself King Richard III. While this has remained a cold case for 5 centuries, researchers have recently brought forward 2 new pieces of evidence that point to 2 completely different endings for the princes. The investigation usually starts with motive. Both Richard III and his successor, Henry VII, needed the princes gone to secure their own fragile hold on the crown. The most famous account of their death comes from Sir Thomas More, seen here. More claimed that a knight named Sir James Tyrrell confessed to the murder, stating he sent an agent to smother the boys in their beds. That story seemed to be physically confirmed in 1674, when workmen at the Tower discovered a wooden chest under a staircase containing 2 small skeletons. However, the evidence is far from conclusive. More wrote his account decades later, under a Tudor dynasty, that had every reason to frame Richard as a villain. Furthermore, Tyrrell was actually exordined by Henry VII, and the Crown still refuses to allow modern DNA testing on the bones. Without physical testing or an unbiased record, the official history of the prince's murder looks less like a proven fact and more like a carefully constructed narrative. New research is now challenging that narrative. Professor Tim Thornton recently uncovered a highly specific will written 33 years after the princes vanished. The will belonged to Lady Margaret Capel, the half-sister of James Tyrrell's wife. In it, she left a particular piece of jewelry to her son. This is a photo of a royal chain of office. These were deeply personal items, often used to express the wearer's specific rank and identity. Lady Capel's will explicitly identifies her chain as the one that belonged to young King Edward V. The fact that the family of the accused assassin held the missing king's irreplaceable personal jewelry adds significant weight to the theory that the boys never left the Tower alive. But another group of researchers, the Missing Princes Project, has found a different set of clues. They recently located 4 new documents in European archives that suggest a different fate. These documents suggest that the princes didn't die in 1483. Instead, they suggest the boys were smuggled out of the Tower and lived to challenge Henry VII for the throne in the 1490s. Historians are now left with 2 conflicting trails: a physical artifact that links an assassin to the king's possessions, and archival records that place the princes alive in Europe years after their supposed death. The mystery demonstrates how easily the victors of a war can control the record. By the time Henry VII took the throne, the story of the evil uncle was the only version allowed to survive. Without a body or a public trial, Tudor writers were able to fill the silence with a story of murder that permanently defined Richard III's reputation. Whether they were killed in the Tower or escaped to lead a failed rebellion, the disappearance of these 2 children ended the direct Plantagenet line and handed the crown to a new dynasty. So, which evidence do you find more compelling? Does the royal chain found in the Tyrrell family prove a murder, or do the European documents prove they survived? Let me know your theory in the comments.